A few weeks ago I talked about the architect who designed Victorian Buxton, R.R.Duke. Now eventually he sold his architect's practice to a gentleman called W.R.Bryden, who carried on designing a beautiful Buxton after Duke. So today I thought it'd be worth looking at Bryden's story on the 61st episode of the Buxton Barrowman. William was born in 1851 in Eccles, son to a William Anderson and Maria Bryden. Between 1865 and 68 he attended Cheltenham College with his younger brothers, and eventually he went on to train as an architect. And he trained with some rather big names at the time, including Edward Middleton Barry, Robert William Edis and William Henry Crosland. Bryden went on to be an Associate of RIBA, the Royal Institute of British Architects, in 1876. 1 year later he set up his own practice called Bedborough and Bryden's in Bideford and Westwood Ho in Devon. Unfortunately, this didn't last very long, as in 1878, just a year later, he cut ties with Alfred Bedborough and dissolved the practice. Following this, he married Emily Critchen, and they went on to have 2 children together, Archibald and Jessie. But unfortunately, Emily passed at the age of just 27 in 1882. And following tragedy, just like how Duke did, he too moved to Buxton in 1883. And it was here that Bryden bought Duke's old practice, and where he designed many grand buildings, as well as training up George Garlick and William Holland, who later set up their own architect's practice here in town. And just like Duke, he too was also appointed an architect for the Buxton estate by the Duke of Devonshire. During his time here, Bryden remarried in 1884 and went on to have a further 3 more children: Arthur, Alice and Florence, with Alice Sawyer. Bryden completed many projects in Buxton, starting with the remodelling of the thermal baths with a new water tower and improving the facade. He went on to design the Union Club, now the old clubhouse, in 1886. A year later he designed a ballroom for the Buxton Hydro Hotel, which was sadly demolished in 1973. The ever-expanding Pavilion Gardens, then run by the Buxton Gardens Company, commissioned a new entertainment stage, now the Arts Centre, to be designed by Bryden and built by local builder James Salt in 1889. It is a wonderful building with motifs on the outside relating to its use as an entertainment stage, which, of course, over the years has changed a fair bit. After the new theatre, Bryden also designed a manse for the Unitarian Chapel in 1890, a new parsonage in 1895, the Catholic Apostolic Church in 1896, the Oriental Tea Kiosk in the Pavilion Gardens in 1899, which unfortunately was demolished in 1977, as well as many houses and villas across the town, including Marlborough Mansions, 12 Park Road, and the Hawthorns in 1891, Lakenham, Inglethorpe, Glenbrook, Elmwood, and Elm Bank in 1898, basically half of Burlington Road, the Branksom's Coachman's Lodge in 1902, Milthorpe Almhouses in 1905, Lerrin, Etherton and Brooklands between 1908 and 10, the now demolished Parkfield Villa, once on Carlisle Road, also in 1910, and Ravensworth in 1912. Bryden, on top of all of this, also restored a nave of a church in Bigildy in Wales. Not entirely sure the connection on why he did that, and he also rebuilt St Paul's in Flash, as well as building some almhouses on Ecclesall Road in Sheffield. Arguably the most iconic building he designed, albeit not for its architectural value, is Solomon's Temple, or Grinlow Tower as it was originally named, and it was a joint venture between himself and his student George Edwin Garlick back in 1894, and since then has become a symbol of this town. Amid all this designing, back in 1886, rather interestingly, he won the first championship tournament at the Buxton and High Peak Golf Club and designed his own homes the previously mentioned Lakenham, and the Heathfield on Park Road in 1905. In 1921 he retired and sold up his architect's practice to Charles Swain of Manchester. 20 years later he passed at the age of 89 in the seaside town of Bexhill-on-Sea, Sussex. William truly carried on Duke's legacy of building a beautiful Buxton, with Bryden's villas being some of the most prominent still left in Buxton today, with his notable gables, towers and mixed window designs. And personally, I love every single one of them, but I'd like to know your guys' opinions. As always, you can leave them down below. Thank you very much for watching, a huge thank you to all my supporters on Ko-fi, and until next time, ta-ra. Massive problems.